We gather here to worship, to seek the truth, to grow in love, to join in service, to celebrate life's beauty and find healing for its pain, to honour our kinship with each other and with this earth, and to create a more compassionate world, beginning with ourselves, to find wonder at the mystery that gave us birth, to find courage for the journey's end, and to listen for the wisdom that always guides us in the quietness of the moment. These opening words by Gary Kowalski. Welcome all who have gathered this morning for our Sunday service. Welcome to all of you who are here in the building at Essex Church. Welcome to everyone joining from far and wide online, and indeed everyone watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast later on. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name is James Blackall and I'm minister with Kensington Unitarians. This morning's service is the first of a two-part exploration of growing up. This week and next we'll be considering what it means to grow up, what it looks like and feels like in our varied lived experience, and how our perspective on it might change or not over the course of our lives. What are the turning points in our lives which have perhaps pushed us into growing up, taking more responsibility, whether or not we feel ready to be the adult in the room? Today we're going to hear from 5 members of our congregation: Charlotte, Alex, Brian, Pat and Marianne, who will share their diverse reflections on this theme. And next week I'll try and build on that with some more reflections based on the book When I Grow Up, Conversations with Adults in Search of Adulthood. That's what inspired me to pick this theme. But before we go any further, let's light our chalice flame as we always do. It's a chance for us to set aside what we came in carrying, time to focus our attention in the here and now, to co-create this sacred space, this peaceful hour that we share. It's a simple ritual that connects us with Unitarians and Unitarian universalists the world over, and a reminder of the proudly progressive religious tradition of which this gathering is part. We light this chalice in the name of holy love. We light this chalice with an open heart. We light this chalice with resolve. We light this chalice in hope, this tiny flame that we nurture. We light this chalice with reverence for this place, these people, this time. We light this chalice with all our souls longing to be who we are, to be who we will become, and to be ourselves in all our fullness for the greater good of all. Time to sing. Our first hymn today is number 62 in the purple books, Here We Have Gathered. And for those joining via Zoom, the words will of course be up on screen as they always are. Feel free to stand or sit as you prefer and sing up as best you can. Here we have gathered.
Oh
So let's take those joys and concerns, both spoken and unspoken, into an extended time of prayer now. This is based on some words by Harry Lismer Short. They're quite old-fashioned words, but I find them quite moving. You might want to adjust your position to get more comfortable, whatever helps you to feel more prayerful, whatever helps you get into the right state of body and mind for us to pray together now. Let's be fully present in this sacred time and space with ourselves, with each other, and with that which lies within us and beyond us. Spirit of life, God of all love, in whom we live and move and have our being, we turn our full attention to you, the light within and without, as we tune into the depths of this life and the greater wisdom to which and through which we are all intimately connected. Be with us now as we allow ourselves to drop into the silence and the stillness at the very center of our being. Here on this quiet Sunday morning, we've gathered once again to seek something without which our lives would be quite empty. We cannot always put clearly to ourselves what it is we expect. But we know that if our hearts are open and receptive, there is a holy gift to be received from our presence here. We have come with a sense of responsibility for the world in which we live. We are deeply concerned about many things which seem to have gone astray. There are sorrows which touch the lives of others and fears which haunt our own days. Conflict and unease reverberate among our communities, writ large and small. And we have come with a sense of responsibility for our own lives. We have work to do, tending to our homes, our relationships, our livelihoods. Often we grow discouraged and weary, yet we know that others depend on our efforts, and we strive to be faithful and committed in all our endeavours. And perhaps we have a sense of responsibility for this congregation too, our spiritual home. Much depends on our faith in times of change and strife. We have a sense of responsibility towards one another and towards all those whose paths might cross ours. We can make or mar another's peace. We can build one another up or tear each other down. So if we ask for light to see things in proportion and to see a little further forward on our way, and we ask for strength and courage and patience to walk in it. We ask for kindness and compassion in our hearts to understand the needs of all those who depend on us. And in a few minutes of quietness now, let us seek a higher perspective, a longer view. Starting right where we are, let us shift our awareness ever outward in circles of concern and compassion. Let us bring to mind all those we know to be struggling this day, and perhaps that includes ourselves. All those friends and family we hold dear, our neighbours in community, and others all around the globe who perhaps we've only heard about on the news. Let us take these few moments of quiet to send prayers of loving kindness to all those who suffer. And let us look back over the last week, taking time to notice what was good and to count our blessings. All the ways in which others have helped or encouraged us, inspired or delighted us. All the goodness and the beauty we have known, even in the midst of our daily struggle. And in a few moments of quiet, let us give thanks, quiet thanks, for all that we have been given. Spirit of life, God of all love, as this time of prayer draws to a close, we offer up our joys and our concerns, our hopes and our fears, our beauty and our brokenness. And we call on you for insight, healing and renewal. As we look forward now to the coming week, help us to live well each day and be our best selves, using our unique gifts in the service of love, justice and peace. Amen. Time to sing again. Our next hymn is number 186 in your purple books. We are travellers on a journey. I'm going to ask Andrew to play it through before we sing, because it's not one we do that often. Do your best if you can. Number 186, we are travellers on a journey.
Since the winter of 2023, I've been reborn. I struggled with depression and anxiety since I was 8 years old. Although I felt mostly loved during my childhood, I don't particularly recall it fondly. But I've been healing the child I was, little by little, over the past 2 years. Now, the responsibilities of being a grown up are sometimes challenging. Caring for my mom as she was dying of cancer, dealing with the healthcare professionals, and then the paperwork when she passed certainly made me feel like a grown up. I felt too young at 29 to be dealing with these things, but I was able to handle it as well as one could be expected, I think. These days, my challenges are simpler: dealing with the bank about my loan, organizing appointments for my car, taking the time to invest in friendships when we don't see each other every day at school. But with these challenges, I'm also able to do things I wasn't allowed to do as a child. If I'm in town on a sunny day and I want an ice cream, I'll just buy one. If I'm in a museum and I'm interested by the temporary exhibit, I'll pay the few extra euros to go. I saw a uni friend a couple of weeks ago, and we were so happy to be in our 30s. We feel less weighed down by social or family expectations. We know ourselves better. We're more able to assert ourselves. We feel like we're on steadier ground in the world. Mostly, what brings me joy these days is spending time with my godson and my nieces. With them, I feel like I see the world in a brand new way. My godson is starting school in September and turning 3 in November, and he can count to 10. How exciting! When he sees a lorry or a car or a plane, he will call it out. Aren't they interesting machines? My nieces had their first Christmas last December. I was so happy for them, and I'm looking forward to decorating the tree with them when they're a bit older. They love music and dancing. I'm glad I can sing to them the nursery rhymes that I learned as a child. Seeing them grow up heals me. I love seeing the world through their eyes when everything is new and interesting and weird. I also love being able to teach them what I've learned. For example, I have the soft bunny toy to cuddle with. I take him with me when I go somewhere overnight. A few years ago, I would have been ashamed to still have a cuddly toy. Now I don't care, and I've told my godson's 6-year-old sister that I have one. Just because I pay taxes doesn't mean I can't like snuggling with a plushie. She was surprised, and her parents too, but moved on pretty quickly. After all, there are better things to do with our time, like playing and coloring.
It's a strange thing growing up. When I was younger, I thought it was a once and you're done thing. You reach a certain age and then bang, you've grown up. You're an adult and you're fully formed. Well, reality is very different, isn't it? In some ways, I was very grown up even in my teens. I was one of those kids that took their responsibilities very seriously. I didn't shirk the tasks I was given. And when I was a student, I always made sure there was in-date food in the accommodation I was living in and cleaning materials. So when I was a teenager, I was a bit like the character Safi in the comedy Absolutely Fabulous. I don't know if you remember that, but that was me. Very prim, very proper. In other ways, though, I had a lot of growing up to do. For a gay teenager in the 1980s North Wales, there weren't many opportunities to start maturing either romantically or sexually, so I had to start all that relatively late. I had a pretty simplistic idea of the world and the people in it, divided into the good guys and the bad guys on pretty simple moral criteria. I still have many of the values that underpinned that separation. But I learned and had to learn to see grey rather than simply black and white. And I also, perhaps not surprisingly given what I've just said, had to learn the dangers of both perfectionism and then the self-flagellation I meted out for my failures to be perfect. To some extent, this is something I still struggle with, but I have grown into a more tolerant and mature understanding here, which is just as well, because in the last few years, I've also got to learn to know my shadow side over years of therapy, and that kind of self-knowledge and being able to carry on despite it requires a maturity that I didn't have even 10 years ago. I've done a lot of growing up spiritually too. I always had faith, but it was coloured by a fair amount of ignorance for all of its fire and its sense of the need to fight injustice. I've been a spiritual traveller for about 40 years now, and I've learned so much as a result. I've learned to be open to new understandings and to positively enjoy not just the learning, but then the jettisoning later of ways of thinking and being that no longer fit. That's given me the knowledge that life and me as a part of life are always flowing, and every stance or view I adopt is provisional rather than definitive. I've learned to love that as well because it brings the perspective that failures and shortcomings can be made good too. I don't believe, though, that growing up has to mean you lose your fire and woolly beige compromise is all you can achieve. Politically, I'm more rather than less radical now at 54 than I used to be, particularly now I understand how the global political economy that we live in functions. So what I've learned about growing up is this: it's a ride at the fairground. It's risky and it's invigorating. It's a challenge and it works at different speeds in the different aspects of your life. It's ongoing, but it's really, really, really worthwhile.
Thanks, Alex, and thanks, Charlotte. So we're moving into a time of meditation now. I'm just going to share a few quotes from some literary figures on this subject of growing up. Maybe it will spark your own thoughts on what growing up means to you. And then we'll hold 3 minutes of silence, which will end with the sound of a bell. We'll hear some more lovely music from Sydney and Andrew for our continued reflection. So again, let's do what we need to do to get comfortable. You might want to get your feet flat on the floor if that helps you to feel more grounded. As I always say, the words are an offering. Feel free to use this time to meditate in your own way. Maya Angelou wrote, "Most people don't grow up. It's too damn difficult. What happens is most people get older. That's the truth of it. They honour their credit cards, they find parking spaces, they marry, they have the nerve to have children, but they don't grow up." Virginia Woolf wrote, "Growing up is losing some illusions in order to acquire others." And E. E. Cummings wrote, "It takes courage to grow up and become who you really are." So let's take those thoughts on growing up into a time of shared stillness now.
I was 13 years old. My father was in the late stages of terminal cancer. He was at home being looked after by my mother. And knowing that he was going to die, I had time to think about what life might be like without him there. But at 13, and not having the maturity to really understand what this would mean, it was all rather hazy and inconsequential within the actuality of his dying. The cancer was progressing and he was having some difficulties communicating, but we'd have a chat each morning when I went in to see him before I went off to school. Until the morning of my 14th birthday. When I went in, and he looked at me a little puzzled, he turned to my mother, who was trying to give him some breakfast, and he said, "Who's that?" She, with a little difficulty, said, "It's Brian, our son. It's his 14th birthday today." He looked at us both and drifted away into a world of his own. He didn't recognize me again, and he died 3 days later. At school on my birthday, I struggled with what felt like a rejection from the safe and comfortable world of home and school, from the security of a shared relationship where I went to help my father in his caretaking job and in doing things around the house, from the hours of playing games, listening to the radio, doing drawings together. I hadn't been able to work out what life would be like when he died. But suddenly, and before he died, the question, "Who's that?" and the sense of rejection that came from it began to clarify the reality of what the future would be like. Half my previous life would still be there with my mother's presence, but I would now have to start to rebuild the other half myself. I felt afraid, feeling that I wasn't capable of doing that. The reality of what my father's death would mean becoming all too clear.
I was born in London to a large dysfunctional family of hard drinkers. My dad was a complex man who had served in the army and was strict on discipline. So everything had to be done correctly and by his rules. He was often kind and funny, but could turn violent over the smallest of things. He had a love of weapons, so the house had many guns, knives and air rifles. My mum had many mental health issues. Obviously, this was not helped by a husband who was so controlling. I remember her as a sad and scared person who would try to kill herself when life got too overwhelming. I was the last child of 7, and all of us spent some time in care. Home life was unstable as there was always tension. But we learned to navigate this by staying out of the way and self-isolating as much as possible. We were taught to trust no one, never cry or show weakness, and never speak about our family life, especially to the authorities. We were visited regularly by social workers, police, probation officers, and the fire brigade, as my brother had a passion for starting fires. We didn't talk a lot, and there were no books in that house, so most of my time was spent with our animals, especially my cat Prudence. Being in this climate did not involve much joy, and I was a serious child who grew up too quickly, learning to act tough and not wanting people around me. I often wondered why I had been born. When I was around 12, my dear cat died. and it felt like the end of the world. Still a bit. There was no one to talk with, and crying was still forbidden. I remember sitting in the garden and inwardly asking for help. I felt the most amazing, loving presence, and golden light was everywhere. I knew then that I was much more than just this body, and so was Prudence, my lovely cat. God had my back, and my faith was born. Of course, life took over, and I left home as soon as I could. I married young, but was ill-equipped for any loving relationship, so this ended in divorce. Many years later, I had 2 children, and my life changed completely. I loved being with youngsters, so I trained to work as a play leader. Part of the training was to observe children playing and write what we saw without judgment or opinions. This I found easy and enjoyable, but more importantly, it opened something else in me. Could I do this for myself? I was always self-critical and believed I was unlovable and unwanted. So through meditation, I questioned these thoughts and realized that these were mistaken beliefs I had carried from my childhood. There was no truth in them. But I needed help in finding ways of dismantling these deeply ingrained beliefs. I became interested in A Course in Miracles and Buddhism, and these teachings were invaluable. I learned to trust and accept what I was feeling, and began to know that what had happened to me is not who I am. I also joined the congregation at Essex Church and felt included and relaxed in this unchurch-like but sacred community. I could be myself. In the Course in Miracles, it says, "Seek not to change the world, but choose to change your mind about the world." This for me was a game changer. I could not change my past, but I could change the way I looked at it. I began to see that what happened to me was not to me, but for me. I felt enormous gratitude towards my family because through my experiences, I had learned empathy for others who suffer. I could sit with uncomfortable feelings, and I could hold a space and listen to the hardest of stories. This served me well later in my job as a community worker, and the local people I served were great teachers. There were tears, but much laughter, and I learned to open my heart to the love that surrounded me. I'm still growing up and learning to surrender completely and give all to God, to trust that I'm safe and all is well.
A letter to my grandson for his 18th birthday. My beautiful grandson, you are 18 years old today, and I have probably been gone a while. Do not be sad. I will be with you today, as all other days. Today is a very special day for you, and you must have grown so much since this letter was written. Writing a letter to you was your mum's idea. The thing is that I see her lovely face in your face every day as you laugh or sleep peacefully. You are only one, but so strong already, showing off how you can stand all by yourself and with such confidence. We see each other every day, and every day we laugh and roll on the floor with Pooh Bear and Peter Rabbit. And you want to look at the books constantly. Most of them you have half eaten already. I am 73 years old, and thanks to you, my beautiful grandson, I finally can be as silly as I want to be. The words that follow must be taken with a pinch of salt. They are not set in stone. Life flows and changes all the time. Whether your heart chooses to sing or paint or make music, let it sing freely, speak freely, move freely. Be kind with people who seem different. We all bleed the same color. Be judged. Be judged. Just. See humanity in all people. Notice their dignity, even if it's not obvious at first. And if you're like me, you will let your heart be taken by animals, maybe dogs and cats and dinosaurs, until you get very old like me and love them all. Embrace mysteries that puzzle you. Find comfort in the unknown. Not everything can be explained. Accept your anger, your pain, your mistakes, just as you accept others' anger, their pain, their mistakes. That doesn't mean you must be a pushover. Yet know that losing is sometimes winning. If your day is sad, give a smile to a stranger. Keep a few coins in your pocket, if they still exist. Beggars, whoever they are much in need. If a seagull steals your sandwich, laugh at its cheek. If someone pays you a compliment, accept it readily. If a child makes a face at you in the train, pull your tongue at him as far as you can. Be happy now. Do not postpone your happiness. Live each day as if it were your last. See others' sorrow and joys and know that you're not alone. When you feel someone's pain, be kind, but it is their pain. When sorrow engulfs you, remember that better days will come. You must have heard about my love for gardening. Be naughty sometimes and drop some slugs in the garden next door. Bindweed, if unchecked, will invade the garden. Perhaps it should be allowed one flower. They are quite beautiful. Love all animals and treat them with respect. Let butterflies be, they only live a few days. Listen to the blackbird at dusk and whistle back at her. Lift a spider from the sink and carry it outside. Be curious of all wild creatures. They only look different. We have not yet learned to speak their language. Discover the wild is your connection to the eternal. In terms of practical advice, I may not be the best to tell. Save for a rainy day. Life is so very short. When someone is speaking, wait until they're finished. If you can, find truthful words that will make them feel good. Don't take on board unfair or unkind words. They do not belong to your lovely heart. Take good care of our living earth. It needs us. Do small things, if you can. Grand gestures of generosity are great, but daily small ones are just as good. Be a bit weary of politicians and the media. That means keep your eyes and ears open. Make up your own mind on all things. Know that your parents' advice is well-meaning. They have lived longer and know a thing or two. Most of all, they love you deeply. May your unique journey be safe. I pray that you will know no wars. Protect and love your body. Protect and love your mind. Be bold in your choices. Take your rightful place in the world. Think of me now and then, and I will come into your heart. Know that the love I feel for you is fierce. It will burn for you and light up all of your days.
Thanks, Marianne. Thanks, Pat. And thanks, Brian. And thanks indeed again to Alex and Charlotte for all your really beautiful and thoughtful reflections. And of course, as I said before, that's not the end of the exploration of the theme. We're coming back to growing up again next week to dig a bit deeper still. But time for our last hymn now. It's number 88 in your purple books. Let It Be a Dance, hymn number 88. Just time for a few announcements then. Thanks to Janine for tech hosting today and Charlotte for co-hosting. Please do hang on for a chat with Charlotte after the service. And if you're a regular online attender who might be able to help out with co-hosting, do let Charlotte know. We always need more hands on deck. Thanks to everyone for their reflections again, and to Sydney and Andrew for the brilliant music today. Thanks to Pat for the coffee and John for greeting. For those of you who are here in person, we've got a red velvet cake after the service today. I think I'd class this as an experimental cake, so your verdicts are welcome. That'll be in the hall next door. We've got the Better World Book Club tonight on Zoom at 7:30 when we'll be talking about Loving Our Own Bones by Rabbi Julia Belser. If you're expecting to come but haven't yet told me, let me know and I'll give you the link. If you want to start reading the book for August, that's Rest is Resistance by Tricia Hersey. I haven't got the copies in for that yet, but we'll have some library copies to lend out by next week, I would hope. And that one's on an irregular date. It'll be the August bank holiday, Monday, the 26th of August. And I've just released the titles for the next 6 months, so there'll be a flyer for those soon if you want to plan to come along in future. We've got an online Heart and Soul spiritual gathering this Friday at 7 o'clock when our theme is meaning making. Please do sign up for that if you'd like to. It's a good way to make more close connections with people. Hannah will be back with yoga after the service next Sunday, and the poetry group, Brian, is the Wednesday after that, if you want to have a chat to either of them about what that entails. And we've got lots going on in September, so do save the dates. On the 1st of September, Many Voices are back with the LGBT and Allies singing group. We've got a tea dance coming up on the 8th of September. I'd be really grateful for help with that, and it's always a good do, so do come along if you can. And our Gathering the Waters service on the 15th of September. Lovely service. We'll have the quartet of singers. There'll be a bring and share lunch afterwards, which Juliet is going to coordinate, so let her know what you'd like to bring. And if you do go away anywhere interesting in the coming weeks, do bring back a little bit of water to use in the Gathering of the Waters ceremony. And we'll be back here at 11 o'clock next week with part 2 on growing up. All these activities are on the back of your order of service. They're in the Friday email. Sign up for the mailing list if you haven't already. We very much have a life beyond Sunday mornings, and we encourage you to nurture supportive connections and look out for each other as best you can. So just time for our closing words and closing music. We end our gathering with gratitude for camaraderie, shared wisdom, goodwill, and the support that we extend to each other within this community. May we continue to bless each other with these gifts, and may we reflect on these manifold blessings, sending them out into the until